Hi, this is Anita from the Global Trade Gal. Today in today's world, there's a lot of buzzwords that you hear going around: social consciousness, ethical sourcing, social responsibility. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about some of those and why we feel it's important for anyone who's in the global trade to be able to understand a bit about these words, what they mean, and how they can maybe impact your business for good, hopefully. One of the words you hear a lot in the global trade industry is ethical sourcing. What is ethical sourcing? Well, ethical sourcing basically is the practice to ensure that the materials and labor involved in creating a product are obtained responsibly. That essentially is the main, I guess you could say, definition of ethical sourcing. So what does that mean? That means things like fair labor practices, environmental sustainability, and transparency throughout the supply chain. Ethical sourcing also involves vetting suppliers to ensure they uphold standards that align with social and environmental justice principles. For example, something like using child labor, of course, would not be part of ethical sourcing. I mentioned this before. One of the really big things that happened many years ago was to the cocoa industry. People making chocolate like Nestle's and others like that. And some reporters or others found out that they were not ethically sourcing, that a lot of children were being used in their labor process, and this, of course, really hurt them. And that's why for a long time you'd see on the back of chocolate bars or other things where they would basically say, "This has been ethically sourced." As at its core, ethical sourcing is about balancing profitability with principles. It's about making sure that everything throughout the supply chain is it's fair practice, fair labor. It's not forced labor. It's not prison labor. It's all of those type of things that are being used, and that someone's not cutting down trees that's going to harm the environment to be used to make a table. It's all about having it's about putting profitability, balancing profitability and principles, and recognizing that every product has a story which should reflect respect for workers, communities, and the ecosystems involved. So you might ask, well, why does ethical sourcing matter? And if you're in the global supply chain, ethical sourcing should matter to you. I think this is really an important or a key part, is that ethical sourcing should matter to you, that if you are in the global supply chain, it is something that should matter. Well, first of all, one is just essentially about human rights and fair labor. Ethical sourcing encourages that people who make the product are treated with dignity and paid fair wages. This is especially critical in globalized economy where labor exploitations remain a significant concern. Companies that make ethical sourcing as part of a priority for them, they will, protect workers' rights and they contribute to a healthier and more equitable community. The lack of ethical sourcing can happen anywhere. It can happen in the United States. It can happen, in Africa. It can happen in Asia. And that's one reason why it's important that fair labor and about human rights and human dignity, that people want to basically be paid a fair wage. The last one is about environmental protection, that sourcing responsibly involves reducing environmental harm by using sustainable materials and methods. This approach will minimize waste, it will conserve resources, and will reduce carbon footprints, addressing the urgent need to combat climate change. So, to be ethically sourcing too also means that you're going to look at the environment. You're going to say, how is this going to impact the environment? How will this impact the community around us? It's a lot about consumer trust. Customers, today they want to see more transparency and ethics in the products they buy. They want to know that they're buying from an ethical company. They want to know that their purchases come from, how they're made, and who benefits from them. Ethical sourcing builds trust and strengthens brand loyalty to align with these consumer values. People want to know that, hey, you know what? This is not being produced by some child who's, being forced to be in a slave labor. This is being produced by an adult who's earning a fair and reasonable wage. It can future-proof your business. It's not just, the ethical sourcing is just not about morality or morals, a strategic one. because this is going to become more and more important. You know, the world has become a much smaller place. And things that happen in one part of the world, people find about in another part of the world. So ethical sourcing really can help you, in a sense, future proof your business. If you know that you have ethical sourcing in place, then you don't need to worry that some surprise thing's going to come up that's going to damage your brand. And this is a lot about transparency, that people want to see a little bit more transparency in the supply chain, that they want to know what they're producing does comply with standards. It has the consumer awareness, and also transparency can help mitigate risks in the entire supply chain. We at Mondoro, we fully embrace ethical sourcing. And, some ways that we do it is we empower the artisans and preserve handicrafts. We are, actively work to be able to preserve some of the handicrafts, some of the artisans that are doing the handicrafts, to be able to keep some of this alive so they can continue to produce these products for many years to come. We really work to sort of vet our suppliers. We, ensure that they don't have young children in there, that the materials they use are aligned with ethical practices. Everything from sustainable harvest wood to non-toxic paints to adhesives to materials that are safe for people and the planet. These are all things that are a commitment to fairness, sustainability, and integrity. We actively work to try to support women in business. We, women are at the core of our mission. A lot of the factories we work with are run by women, not all of them, but many of them are. We try to support women in business wherever we can, or minority groups whenever we can. We, try to, wherever possible, use more sustainable materials for a more healthy planet. Many times, as we are manufacturers, not up to us. We have to manufacture on the spec which somebody gives to us. But if we ever have the opportunity to be able to push more sustainability, we certainly will work to be able to push more sustainability. We, try to do, more production that's planet-friendly production practices, that, how we manufacture our products. We try to do as low, carbon emission as we can and energy efficient as we can. Those are things that we can try to do and strive to do. I personally believe that ethical sourcing is the future of many industries, including my own industry, which is home furnishing, home decor, that as the newer generation comes up, that they'll start asking questions. They'll want to know where things are produced, how things are produced. They'll want to be able to have, products in their home where they can say, look, we are, striving to save the planet. This is a, recycled table or whatever it is. I know I've mentioned before in the past, we produce some recycled tables, which I love, reclaimed wood. I personally, I love the look of it. I love the story of it. I always have for many, many years. I love the idea, the fact that you can reclaim the wood, use the wood again, and create something beautiful with it. I love the character of the reclaimed wood. I love the fact that the wood has some character in it that wasn't there before, but there's always some great character that comes with it. If you'd like to be able to read more about this, I've written a blog on this called Sourcing with a Social Conscience, Ethical Practices in Home Furnishing. And even though it is about home furnishing, this is also really about any type of industry at all, with ethical sourcing, ethical practices. I guess the main thing you need to ask yourself if you're looking for a product is, how could we make this product have more ethical sourcing? How can we ensure there's ethical sourcing with it? And how can we basically tell the consumers about it so the consumer or the customer understands why this is important? Education in this is also very important, to educate the end consumer, the person buying the product, and have them understand why it is important. This is Anita from the Global Trade Gal. Thank you so much for listening. We certainly do appreciate you, our listeners, and we'd like to thank you for being part of our community. We hope that you'll look at the link in the blog post and go to read the blog post. Thank you so much for being part of our community.